other teams.
Okay. Hi.
Here for all your wisdom, Jackie.
Right.
I lost to listen to you this year.
You did?
I didn't. Never told you yet.
Who's that?
I just want to let you know I wasn't good about it because I did lose it to you, and I was like, well, if I'm gonna lose it to Jackie Voit, I'll take it. Oh my gosh, West Dallas. I even forgot their names. It was a referral from a high school friend. She was like, oh, you want to sell their house? Then I get over there and they're like, oh yeah, we have another agent coming over. I'm like, I didn't know it was a competition.
I know.
Damn it.
We'll talk about that.
But
And that happens to me. Yeah, for sure. Hey.
so you might remember it. The house, these ties are huge. The house right next door to them was for sale, complete flip, like beautiful. Their house had wood paneling, tile ceiling. I wanted to list for the same price.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I'm like, it'll never.
I think it was like near Lincoln.
Yeah, I'll take care of it.
Yeah.
Like 80 something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure not.
Actually, I think it was like 70 something.
Right.
It was like 70, because I used to live in that back in 1999 off of 71st in Lincoln. I think it was like 74th. Because I remember talking about the Euro place down the street.
Oh, yeah.
And all
The
the
Greek
all the
Euro
good food around there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I
They actually got a really good price for that house. Was that the one with the bathroom upstairs that had the slanted?
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was her, I don't know if they told you the story, but her dad was like working up there, so he made like a makeshift bathroom, so
He did.
he didn't have to go back downstairs.
Yep.
It was just like thrown together.
That's a little half bath. You know those crawl spaces in bungalows in the attic where the ceiling's like this,
You open like the little door.
and you open the little door and like you can store things. Well, they made a bathroom in there, so you can sit in the toilet, and there's a
But
little
that's it.
sink, but that's it.
You have to like literally
like
get into this space.
Totally no
go to the
permits,
bathroom and
obviously,
scurry
right?
out.
And it wouldn't pass anything that way, but yeah. So that's
That was hilarious.
That is hilarious. So welcome, everybody. We're going to talk about listing presentation today. And if I could just find out who everybody is. I'm Jackie. I'm with the Lifetime Realty Group. I have been in real estate for 22 years, Shore West for 18 years, joined the Keller Williams about 4 years ago, the team about 3 years ago. And when I joined the team, I focused just on listings. So I only work as a listing specialist. And last year I sold 49 listings. This year will be about the same. I'm at 46 right now. I would say, like, when I was at Shore West, about 70% of my business was repeat clients and referrals. And so when I joined the team, we have more other lead sources. So I would say, like, right now I still have, 60% of the business that I do is still past clients, referrals, team leads. But then there's a whole 39% or so that's paid leads, other sources of advertising from our team. And those, I wasn't really used to competing for listings. And so even when you are referred and talking to friends, neighbors, family, you still may be competing and you just don't know it. Because you'll find out when you get there, yeah, we're talking to you, but we're talking to somebody else too. Or you don't ask the question and then they hire somebody else and you never even knew it. But anyway, so I had to learn how to compete. That was just a whole different thing. So what I did learn about that is when you learn how to go out and get business and be more active about that rather than passive and the way that it comes to you, you'll have a steadier and more predictable paycheck. So the things that I learned, I never thought I would be in real estate. I'm a really shy, kind of laid back, always wanted to be more in the background of things. So I worked with my aunt and uncle who were in real estate for 25 plus years. And I was their assistant for a really long time. And I used to sit and listen to her on the phone, talk to clients. And I thought to myself, I'll never do that. And here I am today. So even a shy, person who, like I'm not the high D or social personality type at all. So anybody can make it in this business. And we'll just talk about some of that. The things that I learned to do from them, because they were great mentors, was treating my business like a business and having hours at the office and being at the office and having a business plan and having a coach and doing training. And you're in the best company for training. I mean, I used to say that it was Shore West when I was at Shore West, but Keller Williams by far just has so much great training. And then, you can listen to a lot of things, and you guys are, we have a lot of training. How much can you implement at one time, right? And so I have this, I don't know if it's a little sticky note on my vision board in my office that says, stick to one thing until you get there. And so it's kind of like, pick something. So, there'll be a bunch of different golden nuggets that you can get from today, but, pick one thing and just really, agree to, if it's something you're not comfortable with, do it anyway, and learn to do it. And until you master it. The other quote is, if you chase two rabbits, you won't catch either one. So I think it was somebody at last week's meeting was talking about how we really can't multitask. And when you do try to multitask, you're not really focused on any of the tasks to the degree that we could be more effective. So those are just things that I learned. So, and the things that motivate us to do things that we don't want to do or that we're uncomfortable doing, because we can have a certain level of success by just our personality relating to the people that we get along with. And but if we want to be successful and reach, there's like, there's probably more, but 4 basic different personality types, and you meld with, this personality and not so much those. Well, when you learn to adapt to everyone's personality type and what's important to them, and you can adapt your presentation and your style to that person and win more listings that way. So, and just win more business that way. So one of the things that I did, cold calling. Does anybody do cold calling, expireds, for sale by owners, things like that? Well, it's something that I had to do when I became licensed, and they wanted me to get on the phones with my uncle and do cold calling. So they sent Joe and I out to Las Vegas to do a Mike Ferry. You ever heard of Mike Ferry? He's like the big guru in scripting for expireds and stuff like that. So went to Mike Ferry, and it's, you go to one of those conventions and you come back and you're all pumped up and glazed over and, you're going to rock it, right? And you certainly are become more comfortable. So when you have somebody sitting next to you doing the same thing, it's a little easier to, get your nerve up to do it. So the first, one of the first times after we got back, I'm on the phone and, I get this appointment. I'm like, oh, wow, this works. So I go on the appointment and it's out in Heartland. And then I realize I'm up against like the biggest team in Shore West in my office. I'm like, there's no way I'm going to get this listing. And in the end, I got the listing. And I guess what I'll say about that is, again, there's different personality types, and so much of what wins a client over is connecting with them and rapport, building rapport. And it really was a style thing that they chose me over this other agent. So that's just my success story about, I don't do cold calling. I have on and off on occasion when we need to. And again, if you know how to do it, when your business, all of a sudden, you know, nothing is coming in and you're like, oh, I got to eat next month. What am I going to do? Or I don't quite have my goal of, you know, I have this, I want to save so much for my kids for college, or whatever your goal is. When you know how to do it and you have that to fall back on, because as we saw from COVID, and you know, there's other things that are going to happen in life and in the world that are going to change circumstances in real estate. And the more you can get your sources of business from other streams, you're going to protect your paycheck. So probably the last thing that I will say about doing things you don't want to do is, anybody heard of this book called The 5-Second Rule? Or I think her name is Mel Robbins.
Yeah.
Mel Robbins. So she wrote a book called The 5-Second Rule, and it's really based on a personal story of hers, something she came up with. But it basically, it can change your life. No joke. It's a science. And here's what it is. It's the definition of the 5-second rule is that the moment that you have an instinct to act on something, like a goal, or you know, getting out of bed in the morning, you basically have 5 seconds before your brain will kill that idea. And so from the moment that you have an instinct, and sometimes these could be ideas, like amazing ideas, and your brain will kill them out of fear, out of oh, I don't want to get up, or I don't want to do that, or whatever is stopping you. So her book is amazing, is basically that you're 5 seconds away from changing your life with any decision. And that she explains it kind of like a rocket. So in 5 seconds, you have to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and just act. So she gives the example of getting out of bed in the morning because she was in such a depression that I don't know if it was circumstances going on in her life or whatever. And I don't know if she was in Florida or something, and the rocket was going, you know, lifting off or whatever. And like she got this 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you just act. And so I would say that about like getting on the phone, about just doing something that, you know, you haven't done before. Some of the things I'm going to talk about, some of the objection handlers, you know, you're like, oh, I could never say that, or I could never ask that question. Try it, you know, just 5, 4, 3, shut that brain off and do it. And there's something else she said. She said, when you act with courage, your brain is not involved. Your heart speaks first, and then you'll listen. So, but if you know, like 5 seconds, God, you're on to something else, or you hit the snooze button and you're back to sleep. So anyway, so there's a lot that I provided in terms of handouts and notes for you guys. I want to find out, so we're here to talk about the listing presentation. And for me, the listing presentation depends, the success of the listing presentation depends on a lot of things that I do prior to that presentation, prior to showing up to the house. So, and these aren't things that I did when I was at Shore West, and I still had a degree of success, but I'm telling you, you'll have more time in your day, you'll have more certainty about your appointments, and you'll have, it just frees up so much time to do some of the things that I'm going to talk about. So the first thing she's got up is the seller pre-qual script. So a lot of this material I learned from Jeff Glover. You guys heard of that training? We've, as a team, we've done some of their workshops, and I did the listing. It was like a 6-week, longer than that. It was like a 12-week listing mastery class where we had to weekly have assignments and just do everything related to taking a listing. This was something that changed my life, and so much of what I do on listings was the pre-qual script, because it's really doing this on the phone with them when you're talking to them and scheduling the appointment is going to give you so much information. You're going to know if they are interviewing other agents. You can know how much they think that they want to list the house for. So you're not trying to guess whether you're going to be over or under what they're thinking when you're there. So many questions can be answered ahead, and you're not trying to handle any objections when you're using this. You're just gathering information so that when you go, you know what potential objections are going to be there. For instance, I'll say, one of the questions on here is, have you ever thought of selling it yourself? I had somebody say, yeah, it's on Zillow right now. I wouldn't have checked Zillow, right? And if you didn't ask that question, you wouldn't know. Jeremy went out to a property that was a referral that we had just on one of our buyer agents, they purchased, and they didn't have to sell first. Then when they were ready to sell, they had Jeremy come out. He's like, oh, that went really well. Next day, they were on Zillow for sale by owner. He had no clue that they were even thinking of it. So, this just gives you more certainty in so many areas. Are you looking to interview more than one agent? The reason why you ask that is, there's different, do I want to be the first person to be interviewed? Do I want to be the last person to be interviewed? I never want to be sandwiched in between. And if you're talking to somebody who's they call it the high D personality, the really decisive, quick thinking, efficient people. To give you an example, I met with somebody like that out in Oconomowoc, and when I went through this and we asked, one of the questions is, could you tell me a little bit about your home? And when we asked that question, you find out about their personality, because if they start giving you every single thing that they did every year that they've owned the home, they are an analytical personality, and you should bring a lot of information with you when you go to that appointment. This guy said, oh, we did this, we did this, we did this. When I got out there, they had built a garage he didn't tell me about. They had done, all these things that he didn't tell me about. We never sat for any type of formal presentation. He was standing the whole time, and so I wasn't going to sit, right? So you have to match people's personality styles to some degree. And I didn't know if he was interviewing anybody at that point, but I was prepared to take the listing. I had everything with me, and he signed everything right then and there. Like he's like, if somebody connects with you, likes you, trusts you, go for the close. Even if you know that they're going to be interviewing other people, because even if they say no, what's the harm in asking? I've been surprised a number of times where they said, oh, we're interviewing other agents. I was sitting at a table, and they said that they had another agent to come out, and I went through some of these questions, and I said, well, do you think I can sell your home? Is there any reason why, you wouldn't, list with me today? And they said that they wanted to talk about it. And all of a sudden, they start speaking in Spanish to each other at the table. And I'm like, oh, cool, I don't have to leave. They can just talk. They're having their private conversation, right? While I'm just sitting there. I'm like, well, okay, at least they're not saying, we're going to sleep on it and I'll call you tomorrow. So whatever they said, we signed that day. So sometimes when they say we got to think about it, I'll say, well, 3 heads are better than 2. Let's think what concerns do you have? Or, can I step out for a minute while you discuss things? So it's always important to close, even if sometimes people need to be asked, not once, twice. You can maybe go up to 3 times at that point, then, and ask it differently. And the more objection handlers that you have to things, the more comfortable. So again, pick something, start using it. When you've mastered that, add another one, start using that. And before you know it, you just have a plethora of things in different situations and different personalities that you can use to just ask for the business in the moment. So I've provided the questions. We pretty much go through this for every listing appointment. The more we do it, the more we know, what the objections are going to be, that we can be prepared ahead of time. And then I've also listed the why behind the pre-qual script. Rather than give you my copy with all my handwritten notes, I actually made it into 2 documents. So, and then I also gave you the behavioral styles. So it really is important to begin to know, again, you can connect with certain people, but to be able to gain the trust of people that you wouldn't normally connect with, that's a skill. And that's in knowing what's important to those people, what's important to somebody who's enthusiastic, emotional, talkative, animated, meeting their energy, things like that. What's important to the person who, loves a lot of information. I can tell you price per square foot sometimes is important to them, and just a lot of detail. So for somebody like that, I might bring more comparables rather than less. So I'm going to move on from, unless you have any questions about the seller pre-qual script. So it's something that I do all the time. And actually we have a Lindy in our office, sets a lot of our appointments, and she's now doing the pre-qual script, because we found that sometimes she would be setting up the appointment, then I would be calling them to go through this, and a lot of times I would never get them back on the phone because people are busy, and so it's always best to try to do it when you first got them on the phone and you're doing the appointment. So I would take one of these with me at all times, so wherever I am on the phone, and I'm just making notes on the sheet as I go. And I have this with me a lot of times too when I'm at the listing appointment. So any questions about the pre-qual script or the whys behind the does anybody do the pre-qual script, or does anybody have their own, when you before you even set an appointment, do you qualify that listing? Do you qualify the seller?
The only question I have is, when you say, have you ever thought about selling it yourself? It makes me kind of think about doing it for sale by owner. I mean, what do you say that?
Again, I'm not saying anything. I'm just, I might say, oh, great, there's a lot of people that think about that. And I go on to the next question. It just gives me information so that when I go to the appointment now, I have other objection handlers when I get there, that I can talk about the statistics of listing and selling with an agent versus selling for sale by owner.
But you wait to have that conversation when you get there. This is just.
Yep, I don't.
Okay, great.
I don't handle any, right, exactly. I'll ask them, some people might not do this or think that they won't answer, but I would say 98% of the people answer this question. And I usually know what people want to list their home for before I go out, because I ask. I never used to ask. I ask all the time. I say, in today's real estate market, I find most sellers already have looked in their neighborhood. They know what homes they're selling for. They're looking at Zillow and Realtor.com. I said, what do you think you want to sell your house for? What are you seeing? And they answer me. And they give, very rarely do they not. Oh, that's what we want you to come out for. Great, and that's what I'll do. But it's kind of like, a lot of these questions are like, if you think about going to a doctor and doing a health questionnaire, they're finding out about you so that they know how best to treat you. And this is no different. You're finding out so much about them so that you can provide the best service to them, so. Yeah, so I don't handle, I'm just gathering information. I don't handle any objections or any of the things I find out. If they say that they're interviewing other agents, I'll say, oh, great, who else are you talking to? They may tell me, they may not. But if they do tell me, I may look up some statistics about, you know, has that agent sold in that area? Have we sold in that area? So, you know, it just gives you ammunition. It just gives you information so that you can know what to do. Anything else? Yeah.
So if someone refuses like to answer the question about the list price, they're like, oh, well, I want to see what you come up with, then you just leave it at that?
I will. Yeah. Yeah, I will. I mean, I'll do my spiel and I'll tell them, yeah. And to me, even when I'm at the table, I don't magic, you know, when I bring them information, I'm educating them. And when I do that, list price and price should not be this, you know, it should be obvious. Because if we are thorough enough, you know, if a couple of times I go in blind like that, where they haven't said that, and again, then I'll kind of bring a lot, you know, I'll maybe bring a little bit more detail information. And as I sit down and I go through everything, and I'll say, well, how does this compare, you know, then they were interviewed other agents, how does this compare with what the other agents said to you? Sometimes they'll say, well, nobody else brought me this kind of information. And that's just astounding to me. Some agents don't even bring comparables to listing appointments. And, you know, I mean, maybe sometimes they don't have to, but when you're competing, sometimes that level of professionalism makes you stand out. It's a, you know, have I gone to listing appointments where I didn't have information in my earlier years because I knew them or because for other reasons? Yes, of course I did. But the more you do these things, most of the time or all of the time, just the more success you're going to have. So yeah, long answer to your question. I will leave it alone if they don't answer. Anything else? Okay. So when we have what we call a pre-listing packet that gets actually usually delivered by Lindy. We have sent it in a PDF, but we found that people don't really look at the PDF. It's a lot of pages in here. So having the visual and being able to page through it, we found is more effective and that people will actually look at it. That's not to say that some people haven't done a PDF. We just found it's not the most effective. So on this side is really information about us and our team. And each of us individually, we talk about our mission, vision, beliefs, values, and we have what we call our big why. Do I go through every page of this with people? No. Again, it's going to depend on what I do in my pre-qualification script. Our accomplishments, kind of our stats.
Sorry, quick question about when you're going through now. Do you go through it again then when you sit down with them?
I'll get to that.
Okay, sure.
Not all of it. I no. Yeah. Certain details that we pay attention to that we think are important that maybe not all agents do. And then our value proposition. I know I'm kind of going through this, but I really want to get to the listing presentation. And then we have a 12-step marketing approach. This is so if I know that, you know, somebody's interviewing other agents, and sometimes I'll ask, you know, so what's important in choosing an agent? Well, we really want to know what you're going to do different to market our home. Okay, well, I might be pulling this out and really focusing on the marketing for that client. And then we have at the bottom of that, like the home sale timeline. So from the time, you sign an agreement to closing, just a snapshot, kind of a visual of, and this we stole from Jeff Glover, basically. Then we just include maybe 1 to 2 pages of testimonials. We have over 240, 250, however many on Zillow, Realtor.com. And I always say, well, I can say whatever I want about myself. I said, but what's important is what do people say about me and what do people say about our team? And they always kind of get a chuckle out of that. So we also offer a staging consult for every one of our clients. And we work with this stager exclusively, and just a little bit about her and a little bit about the psychology of the importance of staging, because really a staged home, whether it's a vacant staged home or one that you just provided a consult for them to get the house ready for photos, always gets more money. I have so many examples of the benefit and the return of investment of a staging consult or putting furniture in a vacant home. And putting furniture in a vacant home has astounding return on investment. And then we do get some of our leads from paid lead sources, HomeLight, Dave Ramsey. I don't know if you guys know who Dave Ramsey is, and we're endorsed by Dave Ramsey, so we include that in ours. And then we just include a little sheet on if they're interviewing other agents, just 4 questions to ask other agents. So that's,
I was just gonna say, this is not in your copy packet, but I will place it on the Google One spot so that you can look at it. Your copy pack, I will also put in the Google One spot. We just thought for ease of
Yeah.
distribution, it'll be on there.
yeah. So I think that this is, me personally, I think this is too many pages for us, and I'm working with our team on condensing some of this information because for a couple of reasons, I go on 100 listing appointments or more a year, and I see what they look at, and I see what they don't, and what's important, and I think we can condense it, and the less you have to look at, the better, right? On the right-hand side of the page is what really about getting ready. So we think it's important. Who are we communicating with throughout the transaction? We ask this question: how do we win with you? How do we lose with you? What's important? And people sometimes, when people have this before I get to the appointment, I get there, they open this up, and this stuff is filled out. Well, what does that tell you? Yeah, probably got the listing, right? I'm so shocked whenever that happens. I'm like, oh, just that little step. And then, just where's the best place to put the sign in the yard? We ask them questions that help us write up the marketing. What makes your home a special place to live? Why did you buy this home yourself? How long did you live there? Which features of your house would excite buyers? Now, maybe you're going through this as, you're talking about some of these things as you're going through the home. They might not fill it out, but again, if they've looked at this ahead of time, sometimes they fill it out. And then these are questions all buyers want to know, which is age of the roof, AC, furnace, windows. Sometimes the average monthly, electric bill and things like that. Just what are you including? We have a team, so I'm not the one putting the listing stuff together. So as much information as we can get when we're at that listing appointment and have the seller do, again, your time is valuable, your time with your family, your time with your clients. I mean, if you are going on a listing appointment, at minimum, you're spending 2 hours. You're spending a half hour getting ready, a half hour going to the appointment, a minimum of an hour, maybe at the appointment, half hour driving back. So, when you're pre-qualifying, maybe this wouldn't apply to anybody in here if you're not doing cold calling and things like that. But Jeff Glover, when he talks about this script and he talks about going on appointments, is it worth your time to go on the appointment? You know, what's the person's motivation level? Up until this past year, we used to call everything a listing appointment if we were going to meet with a potential seller. But we don't do that anymore. Some of them we call previews because they're not maybe thinking of selling for 6 months to a year, maybe a year and a half. They're just maybe looking for some information, or, you know, they're just not sure. So if I have, if I'm somebody like Jeff Nevin, who's on the phone every day doing cold calling, they're probably more qualifying whether they're going to go out on that appointment or not, based on, is it a listing appointment? If I'm not going to keep calling and get a better appointment, then go on that appointment. Or if I need to practice being in front of sellers and they don't seem that motivated, I'm going to go on it anyway because I don't have any other appointments, and I could, you know, have their business down the road. So I'm not saying don't go on appointments if they're not motivated, but qualify your appointments. Not every appointment is what I would call, or what we term, a listing appointment. And we term a listing appointment whether they're going to sell within like 1 to 3 months. Anything outside of that, maybe 4. Anything outside of that, we call it a preview. And sometimes we'll do those virtually. You know, sometimes we can give them basic information over the phone. And again, you have to look at what you're doing in your day. What's most important? What are you saying yes to? What are you saying no to? So a lot of this stuff is just helping you be more effective and efficient at your business and at your craft. So any questions about do you guys have anything, or putting things together like this?
So if they didn't fill out like any of the information in the packet, do you, like, if they're gonna obviously sign with you, then you just wait and have them fill it out then, or do they send it to you? when
A
they're
lot of
done,
times
or-
they'll fill it out. I won't wait for, you know, like, we don't take the time to do it there.
Okay,
So they'll do it. They can even just screenshot it to me.
Okay.
Or sometimes they'll scan it. But also Lindy goes to the photo shoot appointment, and she can get a lot of this information as well. So we kind of have backups to the plan if it, you know, if it doesn't get filled out or that sort of thing. Yeah. So anything else on pre-listing packets? I think it answers a lot of questions that then you don't have to, I don't have to page through everything. Again, I've done the pre-qual script, so I know what might be important to them. You know, at the listing appointment, you're basically, oh, we'll get to that. All right. So the next thing, let's see, we're going to go to just, I guess, the pre-appointment preparation. All right. So for anybody who does, you know, works with both buyers and sellers, when you bring your normal listing materials, like, you know, this goes to them ahead. I don't always have all of the listing document. I might have the real estate condition report in here as well. But I will bring the listing documents with me, because if I'm in competition, I'll ask for the business while I'm there. Sometimes I don't have it there because people want to do things electronically, and that's fine. We even have a one-page commitment sheet that, you know, it's not a binding contract, but it's someone's promise, you know, yeah, we're going to work with you, because if I'm going to start sending the stager out, or if I'm going to start, you know, doing any work for them, I want to know that there's a level of commitment. So we have like a one-page, I didn't bring that in out here, but there's a one-page commitment, and I don't use it that often, but yeah. So for the pre-appointment preparation, so you might want to bring buyer consult information too, because a lot of times the person you're going to see is going to be a buyer as well as a seller. I don't necessarily bring this for their benefit, but prior to going on the appointment, I do look up the Zillow, Realtor.com and Redfin values. They're looking at those things. So I just do it as, if they bring it up, I have knowledge. I was like, yeah, I saw that too. And I talk to people about Zillow. I say it's, not an accurate measure, just as well as, the square footage, price per square foot is not necessarily an accurate measure. All of these are places that people look to for determining value, and none of them is an exact science. But it's a place to start, and people look at Zillow, so we can't, diss Zillow, because then we'd be dissing our clients. So we don't want to do that. I don't know if no, okay, that's right. I put it back here. Okay, we'll get to that later. So I do that. And I'll have the data sheet of when they purchased the house. And if that's not available on the multiple listing database, I'll just bring the tax record. That's where I make my notes when I'm going through the house, or want to remember anything about the conversation when I'm there. And I'll put those Zillow amounts and those values on that notes for myself. So I do bring the previous MLS data from a previous sale. I don't always bring this with me, but things to maybe have examples of when you're there are how you overcame appraisal issues, examples, previous transactions. And if you don't have a previous transaction, find out another agent's story and just borrow that story and tell them that this is what we do and this is what can happen and this is how we address appraisal issues, and this is the success that we can have when we do this. Same thing with highest and best offer and multiple offer situations. I mostly talk about those situations. I don't necessarily bring a lot of paperwork to the appointment with me. I don't really want to inundate them with that. And I don't know if people need to see that visually, but it's certainly some people who are visual that might be important for. A neighbor, certainly when I do a market analysis, I don't have an exact science, but I am looking first in that neighborhood. I don't care if it's a similar house or not. They know if something is sold in their neighborhood. So I want to know if something is sold in their neighborhood. And today we're not really going back maybe more than 6 months on a sale, because an appraiser's not going to go back that, probably beyond that far, because there's enough sales to, it's such a fluid market. But if it's been in their neighborhood, I still want to know what has sold in their neighborhood, maybe over the last year or two, unless it's a ton, then I'm just probably narrowing it down to something that's similar to their house. But so knowing about what's sold in their neighborhood, because they're going to know, and you don't want to be caught off guard not knowing what's sold in their neighborhood. And then just being, arriving professionally dressed, prepared. Many meetings I hear, leave everything at the door and just be, it's like the curtain opens and you walk on the stage as soon as you walk in the house. It really is kind of like that. And so just be emotionally present and just drop all your distractions. I don't arrive late, but I don't arrive early either. I do get there early, but I don't go to the house early. Some people do not like it when you arrive early, and they really don't like it when you arrive late. So I'll be like in the neighborhood and I'll just kind of drive the neighborhood, maybe 10 minutes early or 5 minutes early. And then I'll pull up like 2 minutes before I'm supposed to, walk in the door. That gives me time to collect my thoughts, especially if something happened at home or at the office, or, just whatever's going on in my mind. It's okay. It's 5 minutes, a couple of minutes to just kind of decompress, get ready, and, be present for the people that you're in front of. Bring the comparables. I bring comparables. So I will bring this, even if they have a copy, so that I can refer to my own copy of it. And in case, like here's something else we learned. So Lindy would drop this off, maybe put it in between their front door. Do you know how many people don't use their front doors? Many. And so they never knew it was there. So I'd say, oh, did you receive this? And like, no. I'm like, let's go check your front door. So that's just, because everybody comes in through the garage or, people don't go through their front door. So, so I do bring that with me. And then in here, I have one of the things I didn't have on there too. A lot of the times I will bring a net proceeds sheet. There are times where I didn't pull it out because after seeing the house, I changed my mind. So they didn't know I had it. I just didn't bring it out. But for the most part, I do have a net proceeds sheet and I put 3 different price points and it has all the expenses for selling, commission and title and proration of taxes and closing costs and home warranty. And in the pre-qual script, I'm asking what they owe in their house. And the reason that you ask that is because you want to know if they're underwater. Like if they owe more than what they can sell for, you want to know that before you enter into a listing contract. So, and most people will tell you, like, that's a question that a lot of people, like, I can ask of that. How much do you owe on the property? But I say it in the context, and this pre-qual script for me is a conversation. It's not a list of questions that, that they feel like I'm reading off a script. It is a conversation. So at some point I'm saying, I'm gonna bring a net proceeds sheet with me, and one of the things I'll do is put in there what you owe on your property so that you can see what your net proceeds is. Do you have an idea of what you owe? Again, 99% of the people are gonna tell me what they owe. And I have found out that people were in a short sale situation that way. So it is important. Maybe not so much today that, because people do have equity in their, for the most part, equity in their homes today. But back during the financial crisis, it was a big deal.
I'm actually surprised how many people you ask what they owe in their house and they just know.
And they tell it, and they don't.
Right up the
Yeah.
top of their head, they know their balance.
Yeah, and if they're thinking about selling, they're thinking about that because they're thinking about what they're gonna make, and they're thinking, they might not know all the costs, but they're trying to get an idea in their head because they're gonna wanna buy too, so.
I still get paper statements,
Mhm.
like me.
I was gonna say, like,
Yeah. And now Jeff Glover and his system, he has like 4, 5, 6, maybe it's 6 different touches to that client before he ever gets to the house. From the appointment, I couldn't tell you what they're all are because we don't do them all, but I would say we have 2 or 3 for sure. And we're implementing one where Jeremy and I are doing intro videos, just a hello, and I look forward to meeting you. We just something we're going to try. I'm not all for the video and technology stuff, but again, that's okay. I'm gonna do something I don't want to do again. And I'm just gonna do it. I'm gonna 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, do it. But I do confirm appointments. So whether that's sometimes even the day of, because so many things, the last thing you want to do is drive a half an hour and somebody forgot about the appointment, or, and it's happened when I've confirmed it. And it's happened when I haven't confirmed it, but then you're like, you tried, but they didn't respond. You're like, well, I would think that they got my message. And if they didn't want to keep this appointment, they would have let me know. You think. So I have showed up in those circumstances when it was like, nobody was home, nobody answered the door. But I do confirm the appointment either the day before, and sometimes I'll text when I'm on my way. Anything about any of this up to this point? So we set the appointment, we do the pre-qual script, Lindy sends the pre-listing packet out. I'm getting prepared. And now it's the day of going to meet with that new prospective listing client. Do you guys get nervous when you go meet with new people?
Not really.
Not anymore? Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely, I used to get really nervous. It's not so much anymore. And I think the more prepared you are, the less nervous you're going to be.
And you don't want to be nervous.
And you don't want to be nervous because,
They can see it.
yeah, they can see it. They pick up on that. And if you do that pre-qual script, it's going to be, I swear to God, that's like 90% of what you need to know to be in that appointment is done. And you know if they're interviewing other people, you almost already know if you have some sort of connection on the phone. You know their motivation, you know they're going to Florida to be with their grandkids, and there's just so much you know. So, all right, so the listing presentation script that I brought and all of the stuff that I'm sharing with you, again, I stole from Jeff Glover. It's not that I don't do all of the listing presentation script, I'll be honest with you and tell you what I do. But this is something that you can use, again, implement all of it, some of it. But as you begin to develop your own system, I think that's just the whole point. And we've just spent a lot of time. Jeff has had such great success, and they do a good training with their listing process that we've adopted a lot of what he does. So, you know, by the time you get to the listing appointment, you're basically there to determine price and timing of getting on the market. And, you know, so it's going over comps, it's viewing the home and closing to get the listing. So let's see, what do I want to do first here? So I'm going to tell you, I'm going to just kind of quickly go over the listing presentation script and how Jeff suggests that we do a listing presentation, and I'll tell you what I do. So when he walks in, he says the first thing he says is, you know, at the end of our meeting today, one of three things is going to happen. Either one, you'll have the opportunity to list your home with me, or two, you'll decide not to list your home with me, or three, if for any reason I feel I can't get you what I want, the time that you want, I may decide not to take your listing. And any one of these three is fine, is fair. Good enough? Does that sound fair? So it's about setting expectations. And I've done it a couple of times. I don't do it all the time. I pretty much know before I get to an appointment, unless I'm competing, whether there's not many that we don't get. I'm not going to say we get them all because we don't. If I was doing more cold calling, I'd probably utilize this a lot more of this more often. So, so he doesn't even tour the home with the seller. He asks the seller to sit down and review, you know, and go through his material while he walks through the home, and I think Tina Reddick has done this, and he'll walk through the home and say that he basically wants to do it on his own, because he's going to be looking with the eyes of the buyer without the influence of the seller. I don't do that. I always walk through with the seller. For me, that's where I build rapport. That's where I find out, yeah, they've already told me their updates, and I've already gone through that on the phone with them, things that they've done in the home, because before I come with comparables, I want to know what updates they've made in the last 5 years, or the condition of the home, or, anything I need to know. But I do confirm, like, the next thing he goes through is, let's take a minute to review the questions that I asked you over the phone, just to kind of confirm what their plans are. You're moving to Florida, right? You're going there to be with your grandkids, and you have to be there by the end of December, and you'd like to price your home at 300,000, right? And you said you owe about 150,000. So there's only two issues we have to look at tonight. Number one is the timing to sell your home, and number two, the price that we set on your home. Now, all of this is with expectation. He's not going in there going, I hope you're going to list with me. I'm going to beg for your listing. He's going in, these questions and his approach is with confidence that you're already going to list with him. We just have to determine these few things. So coming prepared and coming knowing your pricing, knowing your comparables, and knowing the personality of the person that you're in front of is going to set you up for success. So I do when I do a market analysis, I used to bring these elaborate 20-page CMAs and statistical data, 3 comparisons on a page, and at Shore West we had all these special reports that we could do. Today, I bring 3 sales, 3 actives. There might not be 3 actives. I print out the pictures, and I print out the detail page. I don't always bring 3 of each. Sometimes I just bring the sales. I was just on an appointment in New Berlin yesterday, and they're considering leasing their home, possibly selling, but they're not thinking of selling even until March. So I can only do a snapshot in time today. If we were going to list today, here's what I would suggest. So I just brought 3 comparable sales from their neighborhood and went through those with them. I did not, this was a referral from another Keller Williams agent in Illinois, and I did not have the opportunity. I didn't even think I was going to get in front of him, but I didn't have the opportunity to go through the pre-qualification script. So as I'm going through the market, the comparables, I would ask them, this is similar to your home. Is this what you were thinking on the price for your home? So there's different ways to find out what they're thinking. And even if they are thinking 50,000 higher than you, it doesn't mean you have to come up to their price. And you're a professional and you're guiding people in a huge decision, and you don't want to just agree with somebody to get their listing, and then not have it sell, or have them be disappointed because that just may be their, we're hoping because it's such a good market. So you're bringing education and you're bringing detail so that the price should be somewhat obvious. It shouldn't be a big guessing game. And if it's a unique property, there's obviously more question. But in New Berlin, you know, there's not many, well, other than the Springdale home that's listed for 900,000. That's been listed since what, 2013? You guys seen that one? It's on 19 acres. Have you seen that?
Is that the one with like sand inside?
Yes.
Yeah.
Unless you have a unique home like that where it's been listed by 8 or 9 agents over the last couple of years.
I just saw that on Facebook and that's all the comments says, this has been listed forever. It's never gonna sell.
Every house sells at a price.
When I first joined the team, I was cold calling and talked to that guy. And I had an appointment and I talked to Jeremy and he's like, then he told me kind of the history and then I never went, I ended up not going on the appointment. I thought, oh no, I don't need that kind of drain of my time. And anyway, so there are unique homes that will be a little bit more difficult to come up with price, but for the most part, there's enough sales and enough ways to not have it be such a guessing game. So I like some of the things that he says in here, and I do use them. So one of the things he says is, I prepared what we call a comparative market analysis, and there's 2 parts to this research. Part 1 is the active listings. This is what homeowners are listing their homes for. And part 2 is what we call reality. This is what real estate agents like myself list and sell homes for. So sometimes the listings, the prices that a neighbor is asking for their house, and this happened to me recently in New Berlin as well. I had done a market analysis and a listing appointment with this family like 3 months prior to them actually listing. And then as they're getting ready to list, they're like, oh, my neighbor doesn't have this, they don't have that, and they just listed their home for this. And I said, well, they don't have an offer yet, do they? But they were listed so high, they're like, well, if they're listing that high, then we should list ours much, much higher. So we had to just have a conversation, you didn't have an offer. I mean, you can list a home at any price, but so looking at his point here is, what are they selling for? Now, this is a bit of a different market because homes are selling really fast. And if it's priced right, if it's pretty much move-in ready with not major damage, you're pretty likely, even at this time of year, that you're going to sell right away or within a week to 2 weeks, and still maybe even with multiple offers. And earlier in the year, homes were selling $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 over the asking price. That's not happening to that degree so much. Would you agree?
I just had one listed, what's today, Tuesday, Saturday or Sunday, we had 9 offers and 7 of them were substantially over asking.
So it's still happening.
Yeah.
I'd say New Berlin, for sure, it's happening still.
350 price range.
Yeah, certain price ranges, certain.
What do you see?
It's been really hit miss. Some of them are like that and some of them they sit down.
Yeah,
One I just reduced 100,000. So,
yeah.
I got my buyers, it was listed at 45 and I got it for 475. Because I was like, there's no other offers, let's just offer less, and they said, sure.
Yep.
I just did comp study in Shorewood in that one house, and there's as an accepted offer that didn't at least do 2 price reductions. It's crazy.
Yep.
But sellers want top dollar.
So when we when we go from as robust as the spring and the summer was to I would just call it a little bit of a leveling off right now, and a little bit less activity, I find it important to look at not only the sales, but what prices are they currently listed at too? Because a market can change at any time. And if you're not aware of that change, you could be advising somebody wrongly. And I guess my point is, yes, we're gonna, for the most part, look at the sales, but as a market begins to change, and I think when you do, being on a team, we see such a high volume of sales that it becomes more apparent quicker than maybe an individual agent who's, doesn't see it on a scale like that. We see those changes happening. Not like a rule, but so if you ever need advice on something that you're not sure of, ask a team. So let's see. This is a great example that I've used as well. Whenever you can talk about pricing in a way that gives somebody a visual, it's really helpful. I have a whole list of rules of handling objections that we'll get to. But one of the things that you never want to do with your clients is disagree or argue, because you're not going to have that client very long. You can use different statements of agreement, like, oh, I understand, or I totally understand, or I hear where you're coming from, or that makes sense. Or I can certainly understand how you feel. I know what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. And we never, and I've had to learn to do this. And I think the leadership has talked about this a lot, that you replace the words but and however with the word and. Because anytime you say something and then you say but, cancels out what you just said. And they're not listening and hearing what you're saying anymore. It's subtle. I don't know that they're aware of it, and if you don't know the way you're doing, all of a sudden the conversation just changed, and maybe it's more difficult. You're not in sync anymore, but it's your words, it's our words, and it's how we're doing things. And you'll see in these objection handlers, these statements are used a lot, because whenever somebody brings you an objection, the worst thing you can do is go through a listing presentation with no objection and walk out of there not knowing whether you're getting the listing or not. Because if they give you objections, they're actually thinking about working with you. They've just got concerns, or these are things that they're considering. So if they're just silent the whole time, don't ask any questions, and then thank you and say goodbye, it's like, how do you read that? It's probably a no. So I love this comparison that Jeff does. He says, for the purpose of a market analysis is to determine the value of your home in the eyes of a buyer. Do you know how buyers determine value? They determine value by comparison shopping. So they look at the price of your home and its features and benefits and compare it with the features and benefits of similar homes that have sold recently or are currently on the market. Does that make sense? And I do, I might not say this verbatim, but this is pretty much what I adopt when I'm talking with people. I talk about how buyers comparison shop, because when I start bringing out the comparables, I'm going to talk about the features and benefits of their home and the features and benefits of these other homes that I'm showing them and the prices that they've sold at. So he uses the example of, if you're going to purchase a new SUV and one dealership had the car you wanted for $50,000 and another dealership had the same car for $50,000, but it had heated seats and in-dash navigation, which car would be more valuable? And they answer that. Okay. What if the dealership put the car with no heated seats and in-dash navigation. What if they put that on sale for $40,000? Which would be the better value then? So this is a good illustration, an example of either you're going to add more benefits to bring up the value of your home, or you're going to reduce your expectation of price. You know, that's how people comparison shop. So if you don't have the features and benefits, you have to be listed at a lower price, but you're not telling them that, you're illustrating that. So anytime somebody comes to their own conclusion without you telling them, they own that. And it's no longer you trying to convince them of something, if that makes sense. So you can see if you want to increase value, you lower the price, or you have more features and benefits for the same price. Does that make sense? So unless you're planning to add more features and benefits to your home, are you? You know, and at that point, you've probably talked about, here's some of the things I would recommend that you do. Like, you know, we work with the stager all the time, and I can tell people what the biggest return on investment items to do in their home are. Painting goes a really long way. Fresh coat of paint is very inexpensive. Sometimes changing flooring, carpeting, dirty carpeting. Yeah, you know, we can, you know, some people will still say, well, let's offer a credit for that. And here's what I say to people, since the financial crisis, so much of lending has changed. You used to be able to roll into your mortgage some updates. And they use, basically, you could do a second mortgage with your first mortgage at the closing table, you know, prior to the financial crisis. And so you could buy homes that needed updating because you could get that updating in a second mortgage. That was the 100% financing that they were doing. You were doing like a certain amount, and then you were doing, well, they don't do that anymore. And the number of people that actually purchase homes that have $10,000 aside from their down payment, waiting to put into updates is rare. So people are going to pay, they're pre-approved, and they'll pay for those features and benefits that are already in the home. That's their preference. Plus, people don't have time for projects these days. So they're willing to pay a higher price on the lending side, on the purchasing side, to get what they're looking for. So I use that a lot when I'm suggesting to people to replace the countertop or put in carpeting, that the return on their investment. First of all, what people think it's going to cost to replace that carpeting, or the perception, if somebody doesn't paint and the whole house needs paint and it looks really, you know, just really tired.
70s.
Yeah, if it looks really tired, I mean, what it would, let's just say it costs $10,000, which is kind of high. So I would say there's not many people that put that. Some people do put that into their home before going on the market. Let's just say it's 5,000. So they put 5,000 in. Do you know, when you have buyers coming through and you haven't done that, their perception of what that house needs could be 3 times that. And so I always tell people that when buyers come through, they have dollar signs in their head for everything that they think that they have to do when they're walking through the house. So, and every dollar sign is a deduction from the purchase price. So the more objections you can take away as they walk through that house, the higher the price you're going to get for the house. So, so there's, I think, so I don't follow the script per se, but I do have the conversation with clients about value, about features and benefits, about what their neighbor has versus what, you know, that house had a 3-car garage, you have a 2.5-car garage, and they had a sunroom and a finished basement, and you might have a walkout basement, but it's not finished. Well, they're not apples to apples. And you just have to really be good about pointing out differences and just really getting people to look at things. Because today, everybody now thinks we're gonna list up here because the market's been so good. So we're gonna get into some of the objection handlers, even for a good market like this, where you still don't want people to overprice their homes or be at the top. So the next part of the listing presentation is where he really sits down with them, or, you know, and a lot of times I'll take that comparable and I'll highlight on the sheet before I get to the house. I'll highlight the bedrooms, the square footage. A lot of people don't know how we look at above grade square footage and below grade square footage. So I highlight that and I explain what that means, and how we can do the same thing with their home. I list the number of bathrooms. I kind of highlight that, the days on market, the dates sold. And again, when I'm doing my comparative market analysis, I'm going in the closest proximity to the home and the shortest time period of sales. And when I say that, I'm starting there. And then if I don't find enough information there, then I begin to go a little bit wider. So I usually don't go more than a 6-block radius unless I have to. And I usually don't go more than 6 months in sales unless I have to. And I usually don't go, other than looking at the neighborhood itself first, if I'm selling a ranch house, I don't look at 2-story homes. Unless no 2-story homes, unless no ranches are in the area. But even then, I might include them, but I would still look for ranches for as far out as I need to go, because that would just kind of be an anomaly. But I start out narrow, and I get wider. And then for my own purposes, I want to know, kind of in that general area or in that community, how many listings are on the market. And of the listings that are on the market, how many of them have accepted offers, or so really how many are really available for people to look at right now. So if they're thinking of going on the market, what are people going to be comparing their home to? Do people have other homes to look at? Now that doesn't mean everybody looks in only one community. So if someone's looking in New Berlin, are they looking in Brookfield? Are they looking in Muskego? Maybe. I'm not necessarily checking all those communities to see what's available. I'm only looking at, because I want a little bit of a wider snapshot in case they ask me more just about the general market and things like that. Even if I don't bring all that statistical information, MLS provides that. And when you do a market analysis, MLS has the statistical information. If you're doing 3 actives and 3 solds, there's a summary sheet, a very detailed summary sheet that kind of breaks it down, price per square foot. So I may know that price per square foot average and high and low, but I'm not necessarily bringing that sheet, because if I have an analytical person that I'm meeting with, I might bring that analytical sheet. But even if I don't, I'm going to probably be aware of that information, because I know that's important to people who are like accountants and just very analytical detail. Engineers for sure. You know, I don't get to do, I would say that the typical listing presentation, yesterday, I think I was only in a listing presentation for 45 minutes. I try to keep it to an hour. Some people want to talk and ask a lot of questions. Those are more your S's and your I's. in our, like, that would be it. That's kind of me, but you're compliant and you're steady people. You're more slower paced people, relationship oriented, task oriented people. They just take things slower and they need your attention and they need to know that they're not rushed. And sometimes you just have to think of ways to be efficient with them without appearing like you're rushing them, which is just something I think you gain over time of working with people. But I don't think at any point I really spend more than an hour and a half, even with that type of person. Because if you're doing everything on the front end and you're gaining all that information, really you're sitting down at the table, you're talking about price, you're going through comparables, you're talking about their timeline, you're reviewing their timeline because you already know it, because they've already told you when you set up the appointment what their plans are. So you're confirming the timeline and things like that. So so then sometimes I'll say, you know, I know you guys thought 260 or 300, you know, after seeing these comparables, after seeing the other properties that are selling. This just happened to me yesterday. I had an appointment in West Milwaukee for a duplex and he wants to list at 220 and I think it's too high. So there are some properties that have sold for that much. And after seeing it, he said, well, what do you think about the price? And I said, you know, I said the other properties are larger than yours and your mechanicals are older. And I think that if you, we'll get into some of these rule handling or objection handlers, but you're pretty much the days of listing high and coming down later are over. It's not a good strategy. People look for good value. You know, when a property comes on the market, they're not going to offer right away if they think you're overpriced. And then if you're on the market too long, what's happening? You guys just told me. Price reduction,
Take a hit
or
price.
you can just automatically offer lower because they haven't, you know, because it's been there a week, right? So, but I've worked with him before and I didn't tell him, oh, that's too high right away. I said, I sent him, and this is somebody I can do this with because I've worked with them before. I sent him a snapshot of everything that's sold in the area in a 6-block radius in the last 6 months. And so he saw the other prices. And at least he asked me. I mean, I would eventually tell him anyway, you know, once we get to that point. But there's going to be a lot of situations where people want to list higher, and it's not going to be in their or your best interest to do that. And some agents, if you are competing, will give them that high price and say, oh yeah, I can sell your house for that. And they're kind of counting on that person has to sell. And so if they don't sell at that price, they've now got them and they can reduce later. And, you know, we just kind of tell people up front, you know, you hired me to be honest, you know, I'm going to be honest with you and I'm going to tell you why. I'm not going to just say, this is my opinion. I'm going to share, we're going to go through this together. Jay Baumgartner, you know, I've listened to him a couple of times talk about, he also very thoroughly goes through comparables when he knows he's going to be up against somebody who wants to list higher, because you're really doing somebody a disservice by doing that in terms of their experience. I mean, it's your reputation too. Now, in the end, are you not going to take a listing because it's 10,000 more than you would have recommended, no. If they're motivated and you know that they're going to sell, you've had the conversation, they've heard you out, you've made your recommendation, they still want to work with you. And maybe you say, well, all right, how about if we'll try your price for 10 days. The first week, we're reaching everyone who's currently looking in the market. So let's see how much feedback we get. If we get an offer, we don't get an offer in the first week. Let's see what the feedback is. If we don't have great feedback, then we'll look at reducing, or just kind of set that expectation. I'll go at your price. If they're adamant, if you can't talk them through getting down a little bit. Yeah, I mean, if they're 50,000 over, I might not take the listing, because that's just setting them up for not being successful, you for ripping your hair out, working and not getting a sale out of it. And no 5-star review.
I ripped my hair out already.
Love that.
Too many overpriced.
Yeah.
So when I go, so that's the listing script presentation. So I really do mentally prepare, and I am prepared for every listing presentation. And we usually do walk the house together. And again, that's where we build rapport, and I find out more about them and their plans. And so then when we get to the table, it really is about price, talking about the comparables, talking about timing, and going from there. And if they're not somebody like my appointment yesterday in New Berlin, where they're not thinking till March, that you have the listing paperwork with you. What's going to teach you to do that is being in a situation where you didn't. You left thinking that you had the listing, and somebody else came in behind you, even though the seller said, oh yeah, we're ready to go with you guys. But you didn't have it with you, and somebody came in behind you and they listed with the person who came in behind you because you didn't have it when they were ready to list. It happened. So when things like that happen, it's like, I'm never going to do that again. So like, even if you have in your car a couple of packets of, all the contract documents, or even just the listing document, if they're going to do everything else online, if they want to fill everything else out online, that's fine. But when you're in competition, or I don't know, even if you're not, it's just good practice to have it with you. Do you guys do that?
Not anymore, since we got rid of the forms. I used to carry them around.
So then what do you do? So like, you're at the appointment,
It's COVID,
everything's
busy.
changed.
Yeah, it's rare to print them out and bring them.
True.
For wet signature.
So, so then when you're at the appointment, and you know that they're going to list with you, or you don't. I mean, are you in competition often?
Not really, most of the answers.
Mostly not. Okay. So then you're just saying, we'll be sending you the contract forms to fill out and go from there.
How do you fill out the record? Is there a-
There is, yeah, it's through DocuSign. The real estate condition report. Yeah.
They can put the little button.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, everything's highlighted, so they're checking a box, and then in the areas where they can write something, if they checked yes, yeah.
So you just send it 2 months before.
Yep.
I always tell them that you have to like double, triple check that they answer each question, because it will let you finish the document without them actually.
Without
answering.
doing it.
So, yeah, they gotta like. prove to it.
Sometimes I will leave that at the house for them to fill out. But yeah, I mean, nowadays, and I do have some elderly people that don't do anything digitally. Here and there, very sporadic, but yeah, when you're mostly referral, word of mouth. And do you lose one? Do you lose listings surprisingly because you didn't know you were in any kind of competition? Yeah,
Usually if it is, it's a list for less or late.
Oh,
contracts or
right.
something
That's what I was
like
just
that.
asking you is, how do you navigate that conversation? Because like inevitably someone's gonna ask about commission or why.
yeah. Well, really, it's about the experience they want to have. And that's not the kind of brokerage, that's not the kind of agent that you are. There are, 3, 4 different types of agents. We refer really to ourselves as full service brokers and what we provide. And I don't say the words discount broker a lot, but sometimes I do because now I see on their sign, they say discount. So I feel like that gives me license to say discount broker, right? So what's the experience you want to have? And like, when people are considering even a for sale by owner, well, if we get to some of these objections, which, okay, let's get to that. So,
I think a lot of people just don't know what they don't know either. I went on a listing where a guy wanted to do for sale by owner. He's like, if I find a buyer and they come in and then it's just wham bam, you want to buy it, I'll sell it to you and we're done. Like, what happens if stuff happens?
yeah.
How are you gonna know what to do?
Yeah, I think, like a for sale by owner, I would ask, or somebody's thinking about selling it themselves, or, have you done that before? And, let's talk about what you're really trying to do by doing that. I'm assuming that it's because you want to save on the commission and you want, to net as much as you can. Well, you realize that, the buyers, 99% of buyers are working with an agent representing them. And so you're going to be paying a 2.4% fee to that buyer agent. So really what you're saving is 3.6%. And in today's market, I've actually really had people who have sold for sale by owner before who came to me this year because of the market, because they don't have the capacity to work with 15 offers or be able to set themselves up to do that. They actually realized they would make more money by working with an agent. So it's when they don't see your value, so we have to present our value. And a discount broker, what are they offering? They're basically just offering exposure on the MLS. So what's your value? And some of these yeah. So I don't know if I have one for discount brokers. No, we want to sell it ourselves. Start at a higher price. We want to think it over. I have a friend in the business.
I've read some good ones online, and actually do like to go back and look at them. It's like, this is not verbatim, but it's like, it's your largest investment, right? So you're gonna go with discount dentist. Right. Or discount or discount the doctor. And in the real estate package that you have, like that 12-step marketing,
Yeah.
like we all know what companies are, they just stick sign in there, you try to call them, get a hold of them.
Yeah.
If you're trying to show as a buyer, right? But then, like, first off, was that 12-step thing about the professional photos, which makes a huge difference.
It does. That is a huge thing because if you look at some of the photos online, and you can make some, you know, if you know somebody's thinking about that, and, you know, yeah, I'm gonna have you come out, but I am talking to this company that, you know, will only charge 4% or whatever. Look up their photos, bring some of their photos.
And here's actually a story you guys can all use with your own. I had a buyer, my friend of mine, some 5 houses one time. 4 of them had awesome photos. The 5th one was ugly and terrible. And they were like, oh, actually, you want to see that one there. The house was stunning in person. And no other offers. Got it. And
I've seen that happen more than, yeah, than what you're talking about.
Are you sticking to 6% like always?
No.
No.
that's refreshing to hear because
You can't, you lose some if you don't.
some people say, oh, I'd rather lose it than, well, that's not, you know, you wait.
No, you're not gonna lose $12,000 because you know it on
Right, the
0.2%
right.
or whatever.
Right.
So the other thing that you could use, and I used it with my sister too, is if you tell them you have a net number in mind that you would be very happy with, because
Yeah.
you don't tell them that commission won't matter then, but you can put in your 5, 5.5 or whatever with your
You gotta
jacket,
reverse that.
whatever. I did it with my sister. And really, I asked her, she said, well, we'd be happy if we walked away with 375. Well, I called her back after I did. I said, I'm gonna list it at 449. And then we ended up getting 485. And, you know, I still give her, my sister, the lower, but you can do that with people. Say, we want a net, we want to walk away with 200. If you have,
That's
if you get that
great.
number, you can put 5 or 6 or whatever, then go back to what your value is, the negotiation. 15 offers for people paying property taxes and title work. Now that's a couple $1,000 right there. If somebody's gonna pay your title work.
Yeah,
So those are things that a good agent will do.
that's true.
I have a question. This is kind of turned into a Q&A.
Yeah.
So I mostly with the buyer, but I'm trying to kind of shift a little bit, especially with the spring. So I understand this petition. I didn't get it. It was acquaintances of mine. Do you have, so like you have the very physical, formal, listing, you have physical, formal, like listing presentation?
Other than this one, no, I mean,
So what you drop off is what you review with them at the listing. It's all in one.
I drop this off. I rarely go through this while I'm at the listing because they've already looked through it. If they have questions with regard to it, they'll bring it up, but rarely do they. I'll, you know, when I'm at the listing presentation, I'm walking through the house, we're sitting down at the table, we're talking about comparables of price and their timeline. That's really what we're talking about, because, you know, and then I might pull out a few pages, because if I'm talking to them about if marketing is important, I'll pull out the marketing page. I'm not going, I could go through this whole thing if I was with an analytical person who needed to know
They're
everything.
looking out the window.
You're still bringing like your comps and like if you print out like.
So if this-
I am going through the comps, and it's just a fluid conversation. And Jeremy, I don't think he sometimes opens this. Right? I mean, it's so much is known before we get there, and they have this. So a lot of their questions are answered because they have it already. They know about us. They know how much business we do. They, you know, we might be talking about some of the things in here about our team, about the company, about staging, about our references, and anything that seems important, then we just pull out the page. You know, if I hear somebody say something about Dave Ramsey, oh, we're endorsed by Dave Ramsey. Some people don't know Dave Ramsey. Well, that's not going to do you any good to pull that page out
Right.
there. That means nothing.
Sorry, one other quick question.
Mhm.
Like you say, talk about, so because all the work is all done, we're talking about price, things, timeline. So this happened to me, and we talked about timeline. They were closing on another house, so I'm like, hey, we closed everything, and we can say, and they have a ton of stuff. So you just nail down a date and out of there. You know,
So
Like a
say,
nail down a date to go live, and that's their deadline for getting all the jobs out.
well,
Like that. you know,
do they have a
for-
plan for getting, I mean, I talk about, getting a storage locker or, like we talk about timeline. So how long do you think it'll take you to get this complete? And if I'm doing the, if I'm providing the stager, I'll say, once you meet with the stager, let's connect, because we'll have a better idea of what it's gonna take for you to get the house ready. But I don't want to list that house till they're ready,
Well,
because,
that's what, I mean, so I left them, I didn't, be like, oh, you should sign today. Talking, working with that, they're comfortable with everything, I left everything there, I said, hey, I'll pick up the record, right? And then
yeah,
they sent me a nice text, like, hey, sorry, we're going to somebody else. I'm like, "Okay, thanks." Like, no, Bart, I was just disappointed because I didn't do a good job, but I'm wondering if one of the things that I messed up on was between meeting them and the date that we had in that interim, making sure that either stuff is signed before or
Yeah.
making sure I'm checking into that.
well, I signed with somebody in Racine, in Racine, who still is getting ready and was gonna be ready in October. And she's still getting ready, but we have the contract signed. So I'm confident, she decided to change out some flooring. She decided now to put some carpeting on the stairs. So I think, yeah, sometimes when the window is open, here's what happens. People are starting to clear out their house. If they get a dumpster and an agent is driving by who's aggressive, some people are gonna walk up, hey, you're selling your house? That happens. Neighbors start to ask. So when someone in the neighborhood shows evidence, like I see a dumpster in my neighborhood, I'm putting my card in that. I am, because maybe they're replacing a roof, but they could be clearing out the house. Now, if they don't have a commitment with an agent, I have it in. So yeah, I think when there's a longer period of time of getting ready, then a commitment, maybe a signed commitment, or yeah, you had already had the record, so maybe going that extra step. But yeah, that's
happened to me as well. Like, I waited for them to clear stuff out. Month went by and another agent presented them a lower commission, but like it's never even brought up that was an issue.
So I left you guys with, I know we're at 3 o'clock here. So a lot of objection handlers. Now, Jeff Glover says, know one of them, learn one of them for, the things that you think are going to come up or have come up. If a new one comes up, write it down and talk to people and say, hey, how would you overcome this in the future, right? That's how we learn, by running into situations. And after 22 years, I'm still running into situations. So just keep adding to your arsenal of tools, so to speak. I've also given you a pricing presentation script and some pricing. They're not really objection handlers, but days on market is your enemy. Are you aware in today's market that today's market that days on market is an enemy to a home's value? Better chance. You have a better chance of getting 2 to 3 offers by pricing it at 280 rather than 300. And turning. Am I saying this right? I'd rather get you 2 to 3 offers and turn them down than never get an offer at all. Appraisal scenario. If I appraise it at blank and it sells for blank, what happens if it doesn't appraise? Are you, and if you were buying a property, would you pay for, a property over the appraised value? So just different things you can have in your tool belt to handle some pricing objections and some commission objectives and things like that. And then I have this whole page on rules of objection handlings. And if you want to become a master of objection handling, the rules for that are, well, when I did this course, we had to write down these objection handlers for an entire week, every single day. And then we had to role play with a partner. And then we had to, some of it we had to do like in front of a mirror. And I would go in that sound booth. That's how I learned the pre-qualification script. I just had to chant that out loud. I did that, like I wrote that out for a week. I chanted it out loud. So becoming so that these things roll off your tongue, the more that you do it, like if you don't go on 100 listing appointments throughout the year, you're doing it, less because you're splitting your time between buyers and sellers. Then the more that you practice, that means that you're not practicing on your clients. You're practicing it in the office, you're practicing, role playing with other people. You're just chanting in front of the mirror, things like that. So I just never would have thought that I'd be calling expired listings or, and the thing is you'd be surprised when not that you have to do that for your business, but when you do it, it's not that hard to do, and you discover you're successful in doing it. That if you're in a situation, again, where you need to go generate your own business, you know how to do it and you can do it, even though maybe it's not the first thing you would choose to do, but you know how, and you can, and you're not going to starve. So, and your family's not going to starve, or you're still going to meet your goals, right? And if we don't have a goal big enough, I always say, somebody said this to me in my past, that the things that motivate us to change or to do things we don't want to do is either pain or vision. So if you don't have food in your refrigerator and you need to eat, you're going to do whatever it takes to, get the business. On the same token, if you have a vision, maybe it's a car, maybe it's kids going to college, maybe it's just being successful as a woman because nobody in your family has achieved that level of success, or whatever it is for you. They talk about vision planning and vision boards and stuff, and I think that whatever motivates us individually is what we need to zero in on, because unless you have that vision, we're creatures of comfort. We're going to do what's comfortable until we have to do something different, right? So I hope that that was a lot of talking.
Did a great job, thank you.
Good. I hope, it's a lot of, probably could do that in 3 different sessions with role playing and lots more questions, but thanks for being here today. And are you guys doing pies at all?
Yeah,
Oh,
just started, I've got to get down there.
All right.
Hi,
All right, Pie Day. I'm gonna go deliver some. Yeah, I am. Not all of them.
Who did you decide to get the deliveries?
Well, what I did is, I waited until like a couple of days before the due date for the orders. And then, because I have a commitment of contacting my sphere and my clients